Welcome. Is Steve Cohen the scariest owner in all of Major League Baseball? Think about that, let that marinate, and let's start right now. We all know Steve Cohen the other day flew down to Tampa Bay and secured the services of the polar bear. Had that very important meeting. A couple days later, Pete Alonso is a New York Met. In fact, actually, one day later, Pete Alonso signed a contract. Steve Cohen would not be denied. What does that say for the Mets going forward? Are we in the beginning stages of Steve Cohen actually flexing, actually showing how dangerous this man could be? So we're going to get into that. We're going to get it into some very important details around the Pete Alonso signing, some aftermath. Let's take a look at that lineup. This is all we've been hearing about in the last couple of days. How is that all important? One of the most dominating lineups in all of baseball. How is that going to work out? And last but not least, let's go over some major around baseball effects of the New York Mets really doing something extremely special this year. I want to get into that. I'm going to share that with you, obviously, momentarily. But again, I must start off by thanking all of you. The support in our last video was phenomenal, fabulous. Continue to keep supporting the channel. Smash that like button. If you are a brand new subscriber or a returning viewer, please join the channel. We would love to have you if you're a New York Mets fan or any MLB fan for that matter. If you're passionate about MLB, this is the channel for you. And also, too, I just want to mention we are 350 subs away from our first giveaway at 3.5 3,500 subs. We will be giving away. We're going to start off with a $25 gift card. At 4,000 subs, we have a $50 gift card, and the giveaways will be more and better. At 5,000, we have a jersey giveaway. So for you to be involved, obviously, you have to be subscribed, and we are rewarding our members. Right now, we have a couple new members, and I must continue to thank our new members. You have to be a member to be eligible for the beginning giveaways, and then we're eventually going to expand to everyone. So again, the beginning one, we are going to reward the folks supporting the channel. So thank you so much. Really, thank you. Okay, so let's get into Steve Cohen, the man, the myth, the legend, the richest owner in all of baseball, single owner that is. Okay, so Mets owner Steve Cohen, just so you know, he was the reason and the impetus behind suggesting the sit down with the polar bear. It was Steve Cohen. It was his. He was the guy who said, "Let's get this done." And honestly, that was really, there's no doubt about it. That was the breakthrough. Without Steve Cohen, this deal does not, I repeat, does not get done. At least not for anytime soon. It was Steve Cohen getting this deal done. Cohen, in quote, he said, "I really wanted to humanize the negotiations," Cohen told the Post. "I wanted him to hear it straight from me, two human beings having a real conversation." And again, in our last video, we mentioned the nonsense that has been going on in many different news stories, publications about Pete Alonso's side said this, Steve Cohen, the big bad man, said that, David Stern is not giving me enough money. There was a lot of stuff said through the media, but Steve Cohen had never spoken to the polar bear throughout the process. And that's what I highlighted. When you don't speak to the other party, a lot of times things can be misinterpreted. And throughout the process, Pete Alonso got the indication that they do not want me. They do not want me. And Steve Cohen, that wasn't the case. We did want you, according to Steve Cohen. And that was really what Steve Cohen wanted to express. And I reiterated that as well. I said, there's nothing like a face-to-face with said player. when you were trying to make these high level deals. And there's nobody better. I can argue there's not one owner, maybe not one general manager or a president that is better in a one-to-one conversation. Steve Cohen has amazing, off the chart interpersonal skills. I mean, everybody, and I heard a lot of the feedback saying, well, this is David Stern's job. He should have secured the deal. And I would have been the first one last month. In fact, I said in a video, I'm like, hey, this is something David Stern should be doing. 3-year deal, under 100 million. Doesn't sound too complex. But folks, at the end of the day, this was ultra complex because there were emotions behind it. There were emotions because Pete Alonso grew up in this organization, and out of the last 6 years with the Mets, 4 of them was with Steve Cohen. When Steve Cohen took over this organization, he developed a bond, an especially strong bond with Lindor, Alonso. Those 2 players had a very tight relationship. So Pete Alonso, obviously, throughout the years, saw Francisco Lindor get paid, Soto get paid, Verlander get paid, Scherzer get paid, all the big free agents get paid. It's my turn. I'm a homegrown Met. I've done so much for the organization. I'm 26 home runs behind the all-time Darryl Strawberry leading guy in the franchise, and you won't pay me. You won't pay me. And Steve Cohen basically had to break down why. And I do blame a lot of this on Boras. Boras acting like Mr. Innocent, acting like, I don't know why 30-year-old first baseman's not getting a lot of money. I don't know. So I do think that Boras was, quite an instigator. So Steve Cohen had to cut through that. And like he said, I really wanted to humanize the negotiations. David Stearns, I'll say one thing. He's extremely gifted baseball mind. He's got an extremely gifted baseball mind. He's good with numbers. He's good with players. But that is not his number one skill in terms of relationships, humanizing, those interpersonal skills that Steve Cohen has on an immense level. David Stearns doesn't have that same skill set. And honestly, that's okay, because at the end of the day, Steve Cohen and David Stearns are a team, and they complement one another. And that, in fact, makes a better, stronger team. You don't need 2 players with the same skill set. You need 2 players with different skill sets to make it in that terminology. Okay. So, as we know, in the meeting, Alonso and Steve Cohen hashed out a lot of differences. Emotions were fresh. They were very high, but they hashed things out as detailed in our last video. If you didn't check it out, please check it out. Mets president of baseball operations, David Stearns, Alonso's agent, Scott Boras, and Mike Fiore also attended. They talked analytics. They talked biomechanics, and they talked bat speed. Alonso scores well in the later 2. And in fact, that's very important. Bat speed is one of the things that Alonso ranks in the 96th percentile. So that is a great attribute to Alonso. And a lot of times when players get older, and a lot of, you heard a lot of things about Alonso, reasons why to pay him. But when players get older, their bat speed tends to go. So a big positive for Scott Boras and for Pete Alonso is that the guy's bat speed has not diminished at all. In fact, he has one of the best bat speeds in all of baseball. Okay, so the main thing Cohen wanted to hear from Mr. Alonso is that he wanted to be back. And the thing he wanted to so that's very important. Both sides, and you would think it's about money, you would think it's about maybe incentives, you would think it's about all these other things. But in this relationship, all each side wanted to hear was Cohen wanted to hear Alonso wanted to be a Met, and Alonso wanted to hear Steve Cohen wanted me. Both sides just wanted to hear they wanted each other. And that's pretty amazing. That's pretty simple. And as we know, it was a very difficult negotiation. It was extremely extended. Cohen, we all know, joked about this being tougher than the Juan Soto negotiations. Um, but things happen. This was a battle. It was a 12-week battle that ended in a 2-year deal, that $54 million contract. Cohen said, I was clear. I told him, I want you back. We want you back. And Alonso responded, I told Cohen I'd like the same thing. Alonso, he could have opted to go to the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays, they had interest. They had interest. But at the end of the day, Cohen secured the man that he wanted. And this is, again, I'm going to say this. And throughout this video, if you can, actually, before I say what I'm going to say, continue to like. If you haven't subscribed, continue to subscribe. But throughout this video, we're going to see and we're going to kind of prove how Steve Cohen is the scariest man, executive owner in all of baseball, And folks, in my opinion, this is the beginning, the culmination. Steve Cohen has his president. He has his manager. He has his superstar. In fact, a couple superstars. And if you look at Baseball America, and I watched a good podcast the other day, and they detailed the Mets farm system. And I know there might be some detractors. There might be some Dodgers fans, Braves fans, Padres fans. There are many organizations that have a higher ranked system than the Mets. I'll tell you that. The Mets, anywhere you look, they could be ranked as high as 11, 12, but they could be ranked as low as 15, 16, 17. Depending on where you look, they are somewhere in the middle of the pack. But the good thing about the New York Mets, according to Baseball America, their scouts, is they might not have 4 or 5 top 100 players, guys ranked, in the top 20, top 30. I mean, they got a few guys, Jet Williams, Brandon Sproat, a couple guys in the periphery, looking in, Carson Bench. So they have some really good guys, and they are making their ways up the chart. But the thing is, according to Baseball America, their top 20, their top 30 is deep. So even though if they don't have like the top 5, a top 5 prospect, a top 10 prospect, all of their top 20, their top 30 are very solid, and there are a lot of potential. So, potentially they can have a Jesus Baez, who's like the number 14, 15 ranked prospect. He could be the best prospect. Or Jonah Tong, he's outside the top 10. He can end up being the best prospect. A Drew Gilbert, a Ryan Clifford, a whole slew of guys. It doesn't have to just be Brandon Sprout and Jet Williams. Although those are the top 2 guys, the Mets have such a deep farm system that it can come from wherever. And that's a credit to David Stearns. That's a credit to Steve Cohen for building the depth of this farm system. They haven't made any trades. And that's also another thing. The Mets could start taking care of business. The dust is beginning to settle on this roster, this team. We know most Mets fans have identified the biggest opportunity, let's put it that way, for the Mets to improve is to get a front line starter. Relievers have seemed to improve, especially from last year. The bullpen is going to be anchored again by Mr. Edwin Diaz, followed by AJ Minter. Probably, you got a couple guys who can be in that 7th, 8th inning role, so you really kind of like that. But the bullpen is improved. It is really improved. Last year, I think you had Ottavino and Brooks Raley in the 8th inning. So you have a lot more options at the end of the bullpen, which I do like. If they bring back a Raley, I think that would be phenomenal because I think that only strengthens the pen. He was an 8th inning guy last year. Now he's like a 2nd or 3rd lefty. So, the Mets bullpen has been improved. The lineup has been improved. And then also, too, there's going to be growth. Mark Vientos is going into his age 25 season. He's going to be 25 and a half. So he's not, he's a youngster, but he's not a young youngster. I'll put it that way. But he is in his 2nd year. So I expect growth. More growth for Vientos. If you could do it in the playoffs, mash in the playoffs, and if you can mash in your first full rookie season, I expect him to have some lumps, but I expect him to grow nonetheless. Being in a lineup, probably maybe sandwiched in between an Alonso, a Soto, depending on how they want to do this lineup. The Mets have so many different options, so many different weapons right now, and I expect guys to come up, Acuna, Mauricio, for them to have that type of Mark Vientos effect. In fact, drop in the comments. First question is right now, who do you expect the breakout prospect to be this year? For example, I'll just say this, the new Mark Vientos. Who do you expect to have that Mark Vientos-like season? Ronnie Mauricio, Luis Angel Acuna, Brandon Sprout. Do you expect Jet Williams to come up, or is it another guy? Let me know down in the comments. I think it's probably going to be maybe a Luis Angel Acuna, Ronnie Mauricio. That would have been the guy I would have picked last year. I got to see him healthy, but Luis Angel Acuna, I'm still expecting big things from the kid. In fact, Baseball America scouts, they were trying to identify what changed when Angel Acuna went to the majors as opposed to when he was with AAA. Because when he was with AAA, quite frankly, he was underwhelming. His swing was a bit different, and that's what they identified. Baseball America said they work with Luis Acuna's swing, and they determined, that he had two different swings, and that he had like more of a contact swing and a power swing. So they told Acuna, use your power swing in the majors. And they thought that that would detract from him being less of a contact hitter. In fact, it made him more of a contact hitter and gave him more ability to hit for power. So there was a bit of a tweaking with the swing. This is something Baseball America scouts identified. Let's see if, it translates. Let's see if this one continuous power swing turns into Luis Acuna being that type of next level player. So that is yet to be seen, but that's a good reason for him having that breakout season. All right, so let's continue along. All right, so let's take a look at the roster, and I think us Mets fans right now, today is Super Bowl day. I was always the one kind of looking at the Super Bowl as, I like the football. I'm a Jets fan, but I want the Super Bowl to, I'll enjoy the game, but I always want it to be over because I know after the Super Bowl concludes, it's baseball. Baseball, 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 and more baseball. So this is what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to all things baseball. Now, positionally, the Mets right now, I actually went through a quick analysis a couple weeks ago, but right now with Pete Alonso being back in the fold, let's look at it real quick around the diamond. At first base, we have Pete Alonso back with the 2-year option, $54 million. So that ends any questions about the position. Mark Vientos, Brett Beatty, they can do whatever they need to do. And we'll also look to the future. Ryan Clifford, he's going to have looks in the minor leagues, and we're going to obviously monitor him. He's going to be there for spring training. So let's see how he does in spring training. At second base, McNeil most likely will return as the starter in the beginning of the year, but Luis Angel Acuna is going to be there as well. Ronnie Mauricio perhaps may be an option there as well. Jet Williams, he was in Major League Camp last spring, and he will most likely return this spring as well. So those are some options at second base. Shortstop, Francisco Lindor. There's really no question with him. He had some back injuries at the end of last year. That's when we saw Luis Angel Acuna come up. We saw his opportunity. We expect a lot of productivity from Francisco Lindor. Extremely productive. We hear Francisco Lindor has said that this is his most excited going into this season that he's ever had, his excitement level at the highest. So you like hearing that from a guy, a leader like Lindor. And also, Lindor, he's a guy who plays every day. And also, I want to mention Pete Alonso, also a guy who plays every day. And just about Pete Alonso, just wanted to mention this. I hear, somebody showed me or, sent me the Joe Beningo podcast. It was the All the Pain podcast. And I got to love Joe Beningo. Grew up listening to him. But Joe Beningo, wasn't a fan of the Pete Alonso contract, mostly because it didn't secure Pete Alonso being here as a lifetime Met. it didn't. He says that he doesn't envision the Mets making any other contract offers to the polar bear. And here's the deal. I'm not going to say I disagree in terms of the Mets making a long-term contract after this year, but I could see the Mets continuing to make these short-term high AAV offers. And if no other team is willing to top that, like, Pete would have to be, I guess, do something very, very amazing. I mean, I expect him to be good. I expect him to be around 40 home runs. I expect him to be over 100 RBIs, but still another year older. He doesn't have that qualified offer, that compensation pick, so that may be something there as well. But I think it really, if Pete Alonso enjoys, I expect him to have a raucous ovation on opening day. If Pete Alonso bleeds orange and blue, then I could see a viable path to him being a lifetime Met. So if you are a Pete Alonso fan, don't be down in the dumps about this being 1 year. I would say enjoy the 1 year, and we will look at the situation next year. Okay, so most importantly, what does Alonso do by him signing this contract? What another thing he does is he secures third base. With Alonso back, we know Vientos can now focus on the position that he played last year. And that's so good because now he can focus on improving, getting better. He doesn't have to worry about starting a new position. And that's important because you would like the guy to just focus on something he's comfortable with and prove the hitting, and it's really good. It's good. So Beatty's future with the organization is less certain. It's a bit murky. The Mets could use him as a utility man. They could use him as a trade chip. Not sure how high his value is. In fact, actually, what am I saying? We know his value is not high at all. Okay, so the Mets also have an experienced guy, Nick Madrigal. He could play multiple infield positions as well. And Jared Young, he's also another option. While I'm saying this, another thing that I remembered from the Baseball America guys is they said another very impressive thing about the Mets farm system is their prospects. They have many middle infield prospects, shortstops, second base, but many shortstop. And those guys are quite valuable because if you could play shortstop, another team that wants to trade for you, you could probably play second base. You could probably play third base. You might be able to play the outfield. Usually you're the most athletic guy on the team. And that's what the Mets have done. They have built up a lot of those premium positions in their farm system. That's another thing to hold of note. So the Mets, if they're gonna want a frontline starter, they could get it done. If they deem that they are that one frontline starter away from being a very, very serious World Series contender, and honestly, I don't think there's any question. I mean, from last year, we added some very key pieces. Kodai Senga is going to be back. Juan Soto obviously is going to be back. We got a couple nice pieces in the bullpen. AJ Minter. So I think there's really no question that we're going to be better than a team that was 2 games short of the World Series. Not to mention all the improvements from the youngsters and the other youngsters that may come up and be introduced for the first time. Brandon Sprouts, Jet Williams. The Mets are in a phenomenal position. They have the most resources in all of baseball. They have a very aggressive owner, a very smart GM/president who will not be ripped off, very shrewd. If you're going into a conversation with the New York Mets, it's not like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. You're not going to get the better end of the stick. The Mets have all their ducks in a row. They know what they're doing. They know how to be productive. And you really gotta if you're an opposing general manager, an opposing president, you really gotta have your ducks in a row when you're dealing with New York Mets at this time with David Stearns. Okay, so continue to go to the outfield. We're going to start with left field. Brandon Nimmo's move from center field last spring went very smoothly. He remains the starter in left. You have Jesse Winker, Tyrone Taylor as backup options. Okay, so that's about it. It's at left. Center field, Jose Siri, Tyrone Taylor will split most of the time out there. They're going to, I believe, Serially, he's going to fill like a Harrison Bader like role. Taylor's going to fill a very similar position that he did last year. Both guys, have Gold Glove type of talent. Both Siri and Taylor. Siri, I would say a little more glove. The guy's got a very good gift out there. Nimmo can play center if needed. He is that option. And the Mets also, you have Drew Gilbert down in the minors. That's a guy I expect to get a look. Really, like Drew Gilbert should be 25. I believe is 25. So he's not a young prospect. In right field, I mean, there's not a lot of conversation. We know it's going to be Mr. Juan Soto. As backups, you have Taylor, Winker, and Starling Marte. Catcher, Francisco Alvarez, easy as well. He's going to be the starter. Luis Torrens, the backup. Chris Williams, I know most of us don't know him, but he's a non-roster and invitee to camp. He averaged 19 home runs in his last 2 minor league seasons, so he's got a bit of pop. He will get a look. DH, Winker and Marte figure to be the platoon option here. The Mets still obviously could look to trade Marte. I mean, for that matter, they could look to trade McNeil, Marte. There's a couple options. They can look to trade a McGill for pitching help. But those are the options that we have right now. Starting pitching, and we've said this before, we have Kodai Senga, Sean Manaea, and this is in no particular order: Frankie Montas, Clay Holmes, David Peterson, Griffin Canning, Blackburn. We also have Tyler McGill. We have prospects like Brandon Sproat, Blade Tidwell, Nolan McLean. So there's a lot of options at the starting pitching rotation. We need, in my opinion, a frontline starter. Bullpen is looking good as well. Edwin Diaz, Ryan Stanek, Reed Garrett, Daniel Nunez, Jose Budo, Sean Reed Foley, AJ Minter. So, we are pretty good. We are pretty good there. And I just want to mention this. Everybody was asking, what is the Alonso effect going to be in terms of wins? And Pacoda had us at 88.9 wins last week without the polar bear. With the polar bear, the Pacoda projections have been updated. And they have the Mets at 91 wins, still second to the Braves in the NL East. And to my opinion, that's a bit debatable, but we will get to that in the future. So before Alonso reached the agreement, the Mets were projected for 89 wins, 88.9, 89 wins, same thing. And they had a 74% chance of reaching the postseason. With Alonso's return, this has boosted their probability up to almost 85%. So, it went up quite a tick. And imagine how their win would go up if they ended up getting that front line starter. Okay, so let's take things in perspective. And remember, the theme of this video is Steve Cohen being the most scariest owner in all of baseball. So in the last couple of days, a lot of Mets fans have been, looking to the past. And I've been one of them. I appreciate Alex and Steve Cohen taking over this team, this franchise, and not only taking over this team, but actually putting their money where their mouth is. So then this caused a lot of people to think about Jeff Wilpon and the Wilpons before the 2019 season. And comments came up. One of the comments came up about the Mets having Yoenis Cespedes, a $30 million annual player, when they were pursuing both Bryce Harper, or not, when Mets fans wanted them to pursue Bryce Harper or Manny Machado. The response from Jeff Wilpon is, I don't know how many teams have two $30 million players. Now the Mets have 3 such players: Soto, Lindor, and Alonso. In fairness to Wilpon, baseball economics have changed drastically. $300 million contracts aren't as jaw-dropping. You got $700 million contracts out there. But it's just phenomenal because so many things have changed. And honestly, I think a guy, I say Steve Cohen, the scariest man in all of baseball. think about the economics of baseball, how they have changed since Steve Cohen has entered the league. Just as of note, a $300 million contract, $350 million contract was like, that was almost top end in the league. But I think teams, knowing that you have the big bad man in New York City, now teams have to step up to make themselves that much better. Otani, $700 million. Yamamoto, $325 million. That contract. I remember Yamamoto. I all throughout the season before teams signed Yamamoto, everybody said, "Oh my God, if he gets $200 million, that would be amazing." The projected contract for Yamamoto was around $150 million, but because of Steve Cohen being involved, it went up to 325. Because of Steve Cohen being involved, obviously Lindor got 341. Because of Steve Cohen being involved, Soto got 765. Because of Steve Cohen being involved, guys like George Springer got mega contracts. Nimmo got mega contracts. Scherzer got mega contracts. Verlander got mega contracts. Steve Cohen has literally transformed the economics of baseball, and the players, the agents should be thanking this man. And in my opinion, Steve Cohen is embarrassing all of MLB. And I will tell you why. This season, everybody calling, "Oh, David Stern spends no money. Steve Cohen, oh, he's such a greedy billionaire." Well, Steve Cohen cumulatively has spent over $1 billion this offseason. $1 billion. Last year, the Dodgers spent a lot of money, a little over $1 billion as well. Well, the Mets, one offseason later, have spent over $1 billion. Contracts given to Pete Alonso, Sean Manaea, Clay Holmes, Juan Soto. The list goes on and on. The next couple of teams, you have the Dodgers. They spent 387. You have the Yankees that spent 238. So, not even a third of what the Mets spent is the next teams. But besides those other two teams, the rest of the 27 clubs, the 27 other clubs in MLB have spent $1.4 billion. So Steve Cohen, $1 billion, 27 other teams, $1.4 billion. You have the Yankees and you have the Dodgers that were kind of outliers, but it just goes to show you that there is really one man, excluding the Dodgers, because the Dodgers have put their money where their mouth is as well. But the Dodgers and Steve Cohen are the only two teams really reinvesting back into their teams. And yes, there are other organizations not making the money, but there are many, many, many teams pocketing the money. And I know it's a business. But at the end of the day, to grow most of these businesses, you have to invest. And if you ask a lot of these free agents, they feel the pinch. The reason why Pete Alonso wasn't getting that mega contract is because of the other 27 teams. A lot of people are blaming the Mets. Oh, you should have gave him a $200 million contract. No, you don't bid against yourself. If it was, warranted and the market said Pete is worth this price, the Mets would have stepped up to the plate if they wanted Pete Alonso to go forward with him. So I got to say right now, Steve Cohen is presenting a very scary front. Besides the Dodgers and the Yankees, other teams, have to, I believe, if they want to compete now in the future, are going to have to step up financially. The Dodgers, it's been said that you don't have to spend a lot of money to win a World Series, but Dodgers spending a lot of money in the last couple of years. They've won 2 World Series in the last 5 years. The Mets came damn close, but if the playoff teams are all top spending teams. Phillies make the playoff traditionally, top spending team. Atlanta spent a lot of money, top spending team. Padres, they cut a lot of payroll, but they spent a lot of money. They were obviously made the playoffs the last couple of years. Mets spending a lot of money. They made the playoffs 2022 and last year. I expected to make it this year. So at the end of the day, if you want to be a competitor, you're going to have to spend a lot of money. If you really want to be a competitor, you're going to have to find a way to, deal with a guy like Steve Cohen. And I think it's going to be really rough because this guy has a very unique, aggressive type A type of personality, type of mindset, worth $22 billion. I mean, when he bought the team, I think it was like worth $13, $14 billion. He's made almost $10 billion in 5 years. I mean, that just shows you, it shows you what type of business type of guy he is, and it shows you what type of personality. So this is what he eventually wants to turn the Mets into. In the last couple of years, the Mets have been losing money. I mean, depending on who you go to, who you listen to, it's about $150 million a year and revenue that they are losing, but the Mets have seen how superstars can generate extreme amount of revenue. Shohei Ohtani, in one article that I read, I'm not sure how they figured this, but they said the dollar amount that Shohei Ohtani alone generated for the Dodgers was $100 million. So that's why I think teams were so in on getting a guy like Juan Soto, because of what he does, obviously, for the team winning, but how much money he brings to the team off the field as well. So let me know all your opinions about that. Drop a comment, like, what do you like? I appreciate that. And again, I got to say thank you for the very great comments on our last video. Last video did very well, and that is thanks to you. Thank you for all the folks supporting the channel. I do appreciate everybody. I really do. In fact, I know I should have done this at the beginning of the video, but and I probably mention it in our next video as well, because I want everybody to be recognized. Where is it? Okay, so we've had new members join the channel. Latest new member of Vince Pavone. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You are our newest member. Welcome. And Okay, great. I mean, the fact of the matter is, as the season goes on, obviously we're going to have a lot more content, a lot more videos. So I love everybody to really be subscribed now. Join the ride. It's going to be a lot of fun. We tend to not, I mean, I think we tend to think about things a little bit differently, a little bit critically. We have, my personal couple decades worth of baseball analysis, baseball experience. So, it's something I grew up with since I was 3, 4 years old, the love of the game. And I know a lot of you have that same type of love, listening, trying to hear info, updates about our team all throughout the night, waking up in the morning, looking at your phone, trying to see anything, trying to grab all that info as possible. So I try to bring that to you. So like, subscribe, I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for helping this channel grow. It's because of you. So thank you again and again and again. And let's go Mets.